Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and this is the annual weather report that only happens once a year, right? When the year turns over, I like to do an annual report. So just real quick, the Astrological Winds channel is a free service, and it's put out every week on YouTube. So if you have a YouTube account, please become a follower and then turn on your notifications and you'll know whenever I post a blog. And it's also available on podcasts. Just look it up. On Instagram, just look it up, Astrological Winds channel. All right, and I'll give you a little more detail later. And then the other thing to remember, if you guys are not very familiar with astrological terms, don't get stuck on the terms. What you want to focus on is what I'm saying about what they mean, in this stuff in between the interpretations, which is most of what I'm saying anyway. But I know sometimes people get stuck on trying to figure out words that maybe they don't know, and then they miss the point. So I really, but in this blog today on the annual, I will kind of explain a little bit more of the astrology, and it's a little bit different than the weeklies and the monthlies, even more similar to the monthlies than the weeklies. And the reason being is when you do an annual type of look, it's a long period of time. Obviously it's a year, right? And so what you really need to focus on is the long-term background energy, and so it's very societal in nature. Okay, it plays out in society, but it does pull all of us along because of that, because we're all parts of society, whether we want to be or not. So we get pulled along with the events of humans and history. Like, we can't help but be pulled along. And I would say the last 3 years have been such a great example of that. We had a Pluto Saturn conjunction in late Capricorn back about 3 years ago. And we knew going into that year, 2020, from an astrology perspective, on a very broad background energy of what was going on in the world, that something or another was going to force very powerful restrictions on us. And it would actually have to even be like possibly ordered on us. And look what happened. We had COVID break out that year, and it shut down society. Literally, authorities shut down society in reaction. So it was an energy that was very vast and broad, and it affected the whole society, and therefore filtered down to all of our individual lives. Now, obviously, we all experience that in similar but different ways, depending, obviously, on each of us being an individual. We had to adjust our own personal lives to what that energy brought into society. And then the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022, I've been saying over and over that the broad background energy has been a Saturn square Uranus, Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. And what has that mainly meant? That after, the situation of the COVID, we had situations where the structure of society was under rapid change. Whether it was because of the COVID, we also had a war breakout. That's a very big war, not just a small war that's, sucked in a lot of other countries. That is the one between Russia and Ukraine. So there's been a lot of structure being dismantled or upset, and not being able to handle the quickly changing times. And once again, that filters down into all of our lives. So, I am an astrologer. I do charts for people regularly, and people have been going through very extreme changes of the structure of their lives the last 2 or 3 years. And a lot of it has to do with that background energy coming down and affecting all of us. Now, like I said, it affects all of us differently. If you were someone who has a lot of like Capricorn type energy, or any other kind of cardinal type energy that's really strong in your chart, then you probably felt the Pluto Saturn conjunction 3 years ago really hard. And if you have a lot of fixed sign energy, like Aquarius and Taurus and Leo, and then you're gonna feel the tough Scorpio. I'm sorry, and then you're gonna feel the tough energy of a lot of the structure of your life the last 2 years being challenged and upset, and so that's my point. Is these broad strokes of energy that are in the background are affecting all of us, because we're all members of society. So what happens on a yearly basis usually picks up the story a little bit for, not a little bit, but actually a lot of it from what's been going on. And you can see, like, COVID actually helped kind of start to shake up a lot of the structures of society and showed us how they were not able to adjust to the rapid changes going on. So this year, it's very interesting. The energy that plays out, therefore, has to be between just outer planets for it to be these long strokes. We're really talking mainly Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, with Chiron and a little bit of Jupiter and a little bit of the nodes. Those are the only ones that are going to really affect the long-term stuff. The inner planets don't. That's more of our monthly and weekly stuff and what's going on every day. So what's interesting right now is, we have had this Uranus-Saturn square, and they're separating now and getting close to being out of orb. And all of the planets the outer planets, are all clustered on the same side of the zodiac. They're all clustered pretty much from the the end of Capricorn, beginning of Aquarius, really. It's mainly Aquarius at this point, over into Taurus. So in 4 signs mainly. Pluto at the end of Capricorn going into Aquarius, right? Neptune is in Pisces, and Uranus is in Taurus. Chiron is in Aries. The North Node is in Taurus going into Aries, and Jupiter is in Aries going into Taurus. So you see how everything is smushed in those 4 signs mainly. And because of that, not only that, actually, but not only are they crushed in those 4 signs, but they're all in kind of different degrees. Like, Pluto's right at the end of Capricorn going into the beginning of Aquarius, and Neptune's at the end of Pisces. Uranus is in the middle of Taurus. Saturn is at the end of Aquarius and going into the beginning of Pisces. North Node is at the end of Taurus and getting ready to go into the beginning of... So you can see they're not matching up well in degrees either. Not only are they all clustered on the same side of the zodiac, but they're not matching up well in degrees either. And what that means is that there's not going to be any big aspects between them this year, except for the on again, off again Neptune sextile Pluto, that's been going on for decades, literally. And why has that been going on for decades, you might ask? How can an aspect go on and off for decades? Because Neptune and Pluto basically move almost at the same speed. Even though Pluto is, technically further out, at times it crosses the orbit of Neptune and comes within its orbit, and Neptune will actually be further out for a little while. So they're really running at about the same speed. So this sextile has been going on for decades, and that sextile has a lot to do with the spiritual awakening type energy that has been going on for decades, literally probably since, the 60s, if you wanted to take it back that far. So that energy will be on again, off again, especially while Pluto is in Capricorn still, which is going to go back and forth the next 2 years between the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius. So the biggest changes this year have no aspects. It's really just two really big changes, and then just a couple smaller changes. So the big change is the one I just mentioned. Pluto is going to go into Aquarius this year, you guys. Okay? Pluto has been in Capricorn for a long time, since January 25th of 2008. That's when Pluto went into Capricorn. And at the time, it was actually conjunct Venus too, which is very, very interesting. In the sense that was the beginning of the time when in the United States and in a lot of the world, where a divisiveness between the different sides or parties and political way of looking at things really blew up and became very extreme. On the right side, you had the Tea Party form in the United States, very extreme right-wing conservatism. And on the left side, you had Occupy form, and that was very extreme liberal type energy. So like two very opposing. I should say, why did that happen? Because Pluto is an exposer. Pluto, when it goes through a sign, it opens up the underbelly or the shadow side to the light for everyone to see. The ugly stuff of what that sign represents comes up. Now, the zodiac was created by people in Western civilization. It's something. So all those signs have have a shadow side that's not only within us, but it's in Pluto, it's collective. It's a collective, unconscious shadow side that has society react in many, violent, intense ways at times. War, coercion, propaganda, pushing authority, power trips. That's all Pluto stuff. And when it's operating on a subconscious level, it comes out in those ways. And it is a collective planet, so it is seen through society coming out in those ways, And so that Pluto in Capricorn really has exposed the ugly underbelly of what Capricorn represents, and that is the business world, the corporate world, finance world, Wall Street, all those things, those who are in the power at the top of the pyramid, those who are, that energy has been exposed since 2008 to both sides. Both the right and left are very clear that, there's really a very few people at the very top who are controlling most of the structure of society. And so that's been very much what Pluto does. It shows that, and because it wants us to start to transform that and start to evolutionize, start to come to terms with some of this collective unconscious energy that is bubbling up. So Pluto is going to make a major transition this year and over the next 2 years into Aquarius. And it will go into Aquarius initially on March 24th of this year, but it'll only stay there for for a few weeks. Well, about a little more than, it's almost 3 months. Okay, it goes retrograde on the 2nd, and it won't even reach fully 1 degree. It's going to be at about a half a degree, and will retrograde back into Capricorn on June 12th, and then will go direct on October 11th, and not back into Aquarius until next year on January 21st of 2024. And it's still not done. It'll retrograde back into Capricorn again on September 2nd, 2024, and then finally back into Aquarius on November 20th, 2024, for the next 19 years after that, guys. 19 years. Probably I won't be doing the blog anymore, probably by the end of that, because unless I live a very long life, or maybe we'll all become AI, we'll all live forever. Who knows? Who knows what Pluto in Aquarius is going to bring, right? But it's a cusp time. For 2 years, we're going to have this kind of like a handoff of this Capricorn, there's a lot of things that need to change that we've seen now and get the upgrade into Aquarius. But it's not an easy thing on that level either, because, like I said, Pluto is going to show us what's been hidden in the Aquarius energy then next. And it's going to show us the shadow side of Aquarius, Pluto literally brings up the sociopathic and psychopathic tendencies of society together, and of the collective unconscious together. And so that can come out as violence, as crime. Like organized crime is ruled by Pluto because there's power behind it. There's secret power behind it, but it also represents like the death of old ideas, things like that. And that's what Aquarius is. It's like the rebirth of society. Whenever Pluto changes signs, there's a big shift in the psyche of the collective, and kind of like healing process begins. But it's a major shift in the way society reacts. And Pluto a lot of times also brings up different shifts in what become health issues in society. So there may be a lot of shifts in that kind of thing. But here it is, it's going to go into Aquarius. So what does that actually mean? I think we're going to actually, what is that? First of all, Aquarius is about reformation of society. It's about reformation and people wanting to bring equality and justice and their ideals into society. So I think there's going to probably be a lot of like social movement. I think it's also represents the sign of the melting pot. So like a continued dissolution of the differences of like borders, not only like physical, but like, even like people and relating to one another, abstraction, like just a melting pot energy that we've seen in the world really since the United States formed, which incidentally the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was right after the United States formed. Okay, the United States is going through its Pluto return right now, and so like Pluto in Aquarius was right after the French and American revolutions the last time. So that's the kind of energy that we can be dealing with the next 19, 20, 21 years. Like the urge to change. Now, here's the thing. Aquarius has a lot to do with technology, too. So this is going to be 20 years of technology will be the focus. AI, space travel, maybe even the singularity between humans and machines. I mean, and it's going to expose a lot of ugly stuff too, guys. It's going to show that, People who are working in those fields, companies that are working in those fields are doing a lot of stuff in secret or have already, and they're going to be exposed, just like the Capricorn thing exposed how business and finance and all that stuff went down the last 17 years. Same thing's going to happen with anyone who's involved in technology or science that's been hiding or doing power stuff behind. Their ugly underbelly is going to be exposed to us all too. But at the same time, they're already in power, so they're going to be able to continue to kind of really push their, what that agenda is. But it's a very forward thing. Also, it has a lot to do with justice. And I think right now, I know in the United States, the courts have become very politicalized. And I think people are going to really see that too. If for the next 20 years, we're going to see how the legal system on all its levels, the courts, the lawyers, the judges, the police, the civil servants are all, their ugly stuff is going to be exposed. We're going to really see how they operate. And that's the kind of things that give the impetus for society to change. We can also, I think, expect, like I said, Pluto rules crime too. And so we can expect a lot of cyber crime. Your information is probably not nearly as safe as you think it is out there technically. So I think a lot of robbery, thievery, all that stuff that used to be physical stuff is really gonna really reach amazing kind of new ways of people being able to do that technologically. And speaking of which, it could be cyber warfare too. Like I said, Pluto rules wars, violence, things like that. Cyber warfare, new technological weapons. They may have the lasers in Star Trek going soon, replacing guns during, this period. That's the kind of energy that this can bring. It's a risky, kind of energy, but it's going to look for technical solutions to everything. It's only just begun. If you guys think since the first cell phone came out in the early 90s that we've leapt a lot, I bet you the next 20 years, the cell phone we have right now, the cell phone I'm using to do this blog on right now, is going to be like a toy, probably, by the end of this 20 years. We're going to have advances that we probably can't even imagine right now. And like I said, also, going back to the technology things, sophisticated weaponry, things that are like I said, even the space travel will probably really be pushed now to technological solutions to all the problems, climate change, food issues. Everything is going to be looking for, science is really going to become the god, really. So very interesting energy, and at the same time, like I said, every time it slips back into Capricorn during these next 2 years, it'll sextile Neptune and pull us back into that also spiritual awakening that seems to be going on a very greater level now for over 60 years in society, in the collective, so that's really interesting on that level. And the thing is too, if you guys on a personal level, it's the same thing. You're gonna see what I just described somehow affecting you in your life. And if you're an early fixed sign, if you have a lot of or important planets in the very beginning of Aquarius or Leo or Scorpio, or I keep having a mental block, or Taurus, you're going to experience it on a personal level much more strongly than other people over the next 2 or 3 years. So, but yeah, we'll see that filter down. So the other big change this year is also another planet changing signs, and that's Saturn. And it's not as significant as Pluto, because Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years. But Saturn is going to go into Pisces on March 8th. So Saturn for the last 5 years has been in rulership, and the first, in Capricorn and then in Aquarius. And I think, you can see kind of interesting, like, little shifts in society. Because, like, during the 2.5 years it was in Capricorn, it was a very conservative time. But the last 2.5 years, you can kind of see, like, a lot of that is kind of like dissoluting, and, like, more of that Aquarian energy of, like, equality and people pushing that is coming in. But now Saturn is going to leave signs that it rules, and it's going to go into Pisces, and it's not particularly strong in Pisces, it's not particularly weak either, but it does have a harder time in Pisces. I mean, on a societal level, and it will, I said March 8th, by the way, it will be in Pisces until gosh, I'm looking at my writing here. No, it looks like it's November 2026, but it'll be, yeah, it'd be late 2026. Yeah. So November 2026. So you got 2.5 years in Pisces. And Saturn in mundane astrology represents government institutions. It represents the legal system again, the courts, civil services, and it also represents conservatism, conservative authority, the police, law and order, things like that, tradition, heritage, things that are important for society, but also, and then the structures of society again too, but also, it also represents the fear of changing because of that tradition, heritage moves, and, like, also represents the things that society consider, like, taboo and stuff. So it's interesting. It's going to go into Pisces because that's a dissoluting energy, and that's why Saturn is uncomfortable in Pisces. Saturn wants structure. Pisces is all about dissoluting structure. So I think the next 2.5 years, it can almost feel like a lot of the structures that we depend on are going to somehow be dissoluted, that they're going to kind of get messy, kind of get sloppy, hard for people to be able to get what they've traditionally gotten from government and institutions, the kind of help that they need, those kind of things. But at the same time, I think the government and authority is going to have to be called in to help people more. They're going to have to be called in to be more charitable, to help people because of a lot of the problems that are going on in society. So yeah, and then I think too, one of the other dangers of this one is a mixture of religion and state with Saturn in Pisces, and I think that's very always dangerous in any country, and in the United States. Like I said, Saturn rules the courts and legal systems. It's infiltrated down into the legal systems where religion is, like, influencing court decisions. Science is influencing court decisions. There's not an objectivity. And I think, Pisces is all about ideals, and humans are idealistic, whether they're a judge or a pauper. It doesn't matter. They're still a human being. They're still going to be full of their own ideals and influenced subjectively in their decision-making processes by those ideals. So I really think at this point, people are going to really be feeling like, the courts are politicalized, the whole law and order system is politicalized, and it's trying to keep a certain kind of tradition or heritage, which is not working anymore. So there's going to be a lot of confusing decisions that, the way they go out through society is not going to be, it's not going to be concise or anything. It's going to be sloppy and messy and things like that. But there's a subconscious fear of change in to people who are stuck to a certain ideal. And I think, there's going to be a lot of that kind of energy going on. And once again, if you're an immutable sign, Pisces, and its opposite, which is Virgo, Gemini, and its opposite, which is Sagittarius, and you're in the first, decan, the first 10 degrees of that sign this upcoming year with important planets in your chart, you're going to feel that Saturn energy more strong than the rest of us. But really, like I said, it's not a big year. The other just quick things to mention. The North Node and South Node, they change signs every year and a half. So they're going to be changing signs again, too. On July 12th, the North Node's going to slip back into Aries. They always move retrograde, so they move backwards. So the North Node's going to go from Taurus to Aries. The South Node is going to go from Scorpio to Libra. And I think, really, it's the North Node is where people are driven. And people are going to be driven to, kind of take charge and want to be like a leader. But the danger is, in Aries, it can trigger that pushy leader thing, where people are trying to, leaders are trying to push their agenda. So I can indicate, once again, a very warlike, violent type energy that can go through society. And Chiron, remember, is still in Aries too. So, and Jupiter is also in Aries still right now. But Jupiter is actually going to conjunct Chiron on February 26th. And that's really the biggest outer planet aspect of the year. And it only happened a one hit. And it really is about sharing ideas and ideals with others, and getting kind of some healing and learning from that. And then Jupiter will go off into Taurus on May 16th. And then people are going to really try to stabilize their lives through physical means during the time that Jupiter is in Taurus. They're looking for stability, once again, through traditional things, through having things, through something to hold on to, something tactile, so possessions, their land, their property, their assets, their bank accounts. People are going to be looking for stability that way when Jupiter is in Taurus. So not really a lot going on otherwise. That's really the background energy. It's like a cuspy kind of year. There's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of back and forth, where the older tradition of society and power is still trying to use, especially the courts and civil services, to push that or keep that agenda, whereas the whole society on a certain level is moving forward. And so it's going to be like a kind of back and forth kind of movement for this year, and probably a lot of next year too, with Pluto going back and forth, and that Saturn and Pisces too, once again trying to push agendas. So okay, that's going to do it. We'll be checking in with this energy a lot during the year, and I'll probably get more into it. We'll see probably examples when Pluto does go into Aquarius for those 3 months in the spring. We'll probably get a taste more acutely of what it's going to be like for when it really goes in for 19 years. All right, this is Matt Button. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is a free service, and what I ask of you to repay me is to please pass the link on to somebody else as soon as you're done here. Even if you've done it before, there's someone else We know hundreds of people, and I know and understand not everyone would be into it. Hey, but let them give it a try. Let them figure that out for themselves. They might, you never know. Blog has been growing organically really well that way. I really appreciate it. If you have a YouTube account, become a follower. Turn on your notifications. You'll always know when I'm doing a blog. It's also available on all kinds of podcasts. Just look it up. It's put out through Buzzsprout. Look up Astrological Winds channel. I know there's over 30 people following it regularly on podcasts now, and sometimes there's more. So it's starting to grow on that level too. Also, if you have an Instagram account, it's available there too. Just become a follower. I post extra stuff on Instagram during the week, and I'm going to try to do more. I had thought about possibly even doing a daily TikTok, but I'm kind of feeling like TikTok might be one of those Pluto and Aquarius situations where there's an ugly underbelly I might not want to be involved in. So I'm still pondering that, but I'm going to try to put more on the Instagrams this year. I've only been hitting them maybe once or twice a week the last year or two, so try to do a little bit more. And also I'm on Facebook, Matthew with 2 T's, Lawton, Lauten, friend me. Remember, it's mainly about astrology. If you guys are going to try to get me involved in little social chat, you're probably not going to get much responses. I really use it mainly for that, but Otherwise, please pass it on. And if you need a chart reading, that's the other great way to support me, and it's a great way to support you. And it's a great thing to do at the beginning of the year, too. If you haven't had a predictive reading around your birthday time, it's a good time to do it now and know what's your weather report for the next year. You guys are all under the influence of this kind of stuff, too, and it changes from year to year. So it's really good to know what energy you're working with every year. And of course, if you haven't had your birth chart done, you need to have that done first, because you take that everywhere with you. There's no escape. You can't go anywhere and escape it. And speaking of which, I do relocation chart work too, if you're looking to move somewhere else, and see how that is going to shift the energies in your chart. Children's charts, if you've had a kid or you're having issues with a kid, we can look into ways of like being, more helpful with that and the big events in your kid's life. Relationship charts. Relationships have been so stressed the last few months, right? Relationship time of the year. You can take a look at like what brought you together, or the issues that are going through long-term relationships now that you're facing together. Your weather report together is a relationship. Fixed star readings, if you really are looking for that deeper soul purpose, getting really deep on them. Fun readings too. Elections, if you're looking for the right timing, an event. Horror, if you have some burning question you can't seemingly make a decision for. Also events, if you have some group that's looking for a lecture, class, question and answer session, mini readings, all this stuff available. Just contact me through my email, matthue823@gmail.com, or you can hit me on the comments section in YouTube, but you do have to come back and check and see what my answer is. But once again, my email is the best. It's matthue823@gmail.com. Well, happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2023. The next blog will be the weekly blog for the first week of January and the month of January, too. We're stuck in that double retrograde. There's a full moon next week in Cancer. You guys need to be back then, and enjoy your New Year's, and be safe, too. And I'll see you all on the other side.